Hi everyone, you're probably watching this webinar because you've recently joined Toastmasters and would like to know how you get going on your Pathways journey. It's actually a little bit complicated, and the objective of this webinar is to help take you through it so that you can get going with the minimum of hassle and the minimum of frustration. So first of all, welcome, and I'm going to share with you a slide presentation that I've compiled, which you can get a copy of if you so request it. And I strongly recommend you do that. So let's start. And I'm going to share my screen with you with the presentation, which is obviously all about pathways. And what we'll be doing today is really helping you getting going on your pathways journey, which, as you get to know more about it, will seem like climbing a mountain, like the Matterhorn here. It's quite a long process. There's a lot of projects to do, but that's how you're going to grow and develop in your Toastmasters environment. So what we'll be covering today is how to log into Toastmasters website, because you're going to need to do that to manage your whole Pathways program. We're going to be talking about selecting your paths, the paths you're going to choose in your educational program, and how you get started in Basecamp. Basecamp is where all your details are kept and all the progress of your various projects is recorded. So you have basically online access to where you stand in real time. And we'll talk a little bit about how you start and complete a speech project from start to finish, how you can give recognition to other members in your club. This is something that Toastmasters wants to do, is to get more interaction between members, be more supportive when they achieve various levels in their Pathways journey. And then lastly, I'll just briefly share with you how you upload your evaluations in your Basecamp, so everything is kept in one place. So let's start with logging in. How do you start? Well, the first thing is you need to go to www.toastmasters.org. You'll see part of the website there. I'm sorry it doesn't show the whole thing. But once you're in there, if you are already registered with Toastmasters, with the website, with a username and a password like I have here, you can simply click on log in, and it will let you into the Toastmasters website straight away, and you'll be able to access Pathways. But if you're a new member, the chances are you haven't got to this stage yet. And what you need to do is to click here on Forget Password, and Toastmasters will invite you to send your email address to them, and they will provide you with a password so that you can then log into the website and get going. You cannot do anything in Pathways until you've reached this step. Once you've managed to accomplish that and you're logged in, and can you see here that I have logged in? It says, welcome, Nicholas. You can then start your Pathways journey. You can see there are a lot of other tabs here on the Toastmasters website that I do encourage you to work through, so you become familiar with what Toastmasters has to offer. But the most important thing, though, is to look at the Pathways tab here so that you can get going. So if you can click on that, it will take you into a screen that looks something like this. You'll see there are 3 blocks. The third one is a navigator, which is mainly just an informational portal, the way you can get information about what Pathways is about. And if you haven't chosen a path previously, this tile will show here for you to choose your path. If you want to access your path through Basecamp, then you would log in here as a member. However, if you are a first-time visitor to Pathways and want to select a path, then you must continue to path selection here and click on this button here, which will then take you to your path assessment page, which will help you, guide you to select your path. You can also, if you want to get into your Basecamp, select Go to Basecamp here through this option. Now, you may not already know this. You should do that. In Pathways, there are 10 paths that you can select, but you only have to take 2 of them. And the question is, how do you select which 2 are most suitable for you, that are going to help you in your career or your business or whatever it is that you want to accomplish in your Pathways journey? So for instance, in my case, I chose motivational strategies and effective coaching. But a lot of people that join Toastmasters say, but hold on, I joined because I want to improve my public speaking skills. I want to be more confident up there. How can I do that? How do each of these particular options give me that benefit? I can't see it in here. Well, if you're really serious about growing in the area of public speaking, then one of the paths you should take is presentation mastery. This is where you will get to acquire a lot more of the basics of public speaking. Now, having said that, how do you get to select your path and what's involved? Well, the first thing is that before you start the assessment, you have to know a little bit about your paths and what they cost. As I said earlier, you have to take two paths. The good news is the first path is free, but the not so good news is that you have to pay $20 to embark on the second path. These are online paths. You do not get any printed materials or manuals. Everything is done online, which is, of course, the way the industry is trending and the way that we should be working these days. However, if you're old school and still want to have a black and white manual in front of you, you can still get that, but unfortunately, that costs you $25 for the first path, because remember, it's got to be printed and posted to you. And for the second path, it costs you $45. Now, you have a choice. You can either take your two paths immediately, select them straight away, or you can select a first path, and then later on, when you finish that, start your second path and pay the $20. I recommend you do this for the simple reason that in completing your first path, you may find that the second path that you've chosen may not be suitable for you. And you're not allowed to substitute a path once you've chosen it, unless you do so within the first 30 days of selecting it. Once a month has passed by, you cannot revoke your path selection. How do you get to that? Well, what happens is you take your assessment here. Can you see this button here? You click on that, and it will take you through roughly about 15 questions. A 15-question process where Toastmasters will endeavor to understand what your needs are, where you might want to grow, in order to make some recommendations for what two paths you should take. So once you've worked through all this and gone to the last of the questions and clicked on Submit, Toastmasters will then come up with some suggested options. And as you can see here, there are some recommended paths, of which 3 have been presented. Can you see here? So in this case, we have dynamic leadership, persuasive influence, and effective coaching. And you have to select 2 of these. Now, the other point is that you don't have to select any of these, and you can then select something else that appeals to you. You are not bound by these. And the way you do that is to click on this particular arrow here that says additional paths, which will bring down the other paths that you can select and read more about them and select those instead. So you still have that flexibility to make your own choice. So once you've selected your paths, you can then register your details. Now, something that's very important here is some people say, but surely I should register my details before I've selected my path. Don't I want to just put all my demographics into Toastmasters International? Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to take your path selection, choose a path before you can register your details. And the way you do that is that once you have logged into Pathways again, having now done your self-assessment and selected a path, you will see this kind of screen here and a little icon here. Now, you might see or recognize my picture there. When you come into this, first of all, as a new member, there won't be a picture there. It'll just be a blank face. You can upload your picture and put it in there in uploading your details and click on that little icon, which will bring down a screen of all the bits of information that you can fill in. So for instance, here I can write a little bit about my background. It's got my email address, and I've listed some of my interests here because there may be other members with similar interests that you don't know about who can, in seeing your profile, have realized that there's some commonality between the two of you and hook up with you. By the way, members can see some of other members, a portion of another member's profile. In other words, this here will be visible to other members in your club, but only in your club. So you can fill in all this information here, which is fairly self-evident. So here's a larger screen that shows you the sort of things I'm interested in, which is in cultural intelligence and chemical health and safety. I love cricket. I'm interested in photography, and one of my passions is customer service. It tells you how long I've been a member. This is all generic information that comes through from Toastmasters. And I've also filled in a little bit of information here about myself. Now, this is all optional. It's up to you whether or not you want to put it in. Now, what you can also do is in your account, once it's been set up, you can then keep a record of what you last did at a chapter meeting. For instance, here, it asks me when I was last R counter, general evaluator, grammarian, and so on. And you can put this information in. Now, this is optional. It's not compulsory, and it doesn't have any effect on your Toastmasters journey record. In other words, you don't have to do these things to enter this information to qualify online. It's just merely for your own personal record. And when you put this information in, don't forget to save it at the bottom. Otherwise, it will not update. Now, one of the things that Pathways offers is that you can, in fact, locate other members in the club by typing their name in here. So, for instance, there are 2 members in our club with the family name Tooth. And if I know those names and I type them in, can you see that little buttons come up here for them? And I can actually click on one of these so that I can find out more about that individual. Here you are. You can see here that there's a Don Tooth and a Juanita Tooth in our club. And by clicking on this, I can find out a little bit more about them. So this is just something about interacting a little bit with other members in your club and getting to know them a little better online. So now you've entered your details, you've selected your path, and you're ready to start your icebreaker. Now I've got a separate webinar on how to start your icebreaker because it's a little bit detailed and we don't want to get too bogged down in this initial presentation. But I just want to share some very important concepts with you as to how you should record your journey online in Toastmasters as you progress through a project, because this is very important. Your icebreaker is a very simple, straightforward speech that you present to your club, telling them a little bit about yourself and your background so they get to know you. Now, with all the projects that you're going to be doing in Pathways, there's a specific process. And it's very important that you follow the process, update your record online. Otherwise, you're not going to be credited with having completed that project. Now, it's vital to understand this, and there's a very important last step that you need to follow to ensure that this happens. So there's a process. Let's call it a cradle to grave process for your project. First of all, you'll go into that project on what is called your educational curriculum. And you'll click on that project. It's your responsibility to do that. And you will be taken through a brief. It's quite a lengthy brief, but it gives you a lot of guidelines as to what you should think about, what to follow. It asks you a few questions along the way. So you complete a pre-project assessment, which is one, again, done online. And you work through that, finalize it. You then complete the project, which is usually giving a speech. So you'll give and deliver that speech in your club. And then most importantly, once you finish that, you must come back into Pathways, into that project, and complete the post-project assessment. Otherwise, you will not be credited with completing that project. The other thing that can happen, and this is optional, is the evaluator of your speech. Remember, in Toastmasters, we assign you an evaluator who provides you valuable feedback as to what was good and what might have been better in your presentation. There's an evaluation form. You'll get to see what this looks like later, that your evaluator will fill in, and they can either send you the hard copy or a photo of it, and you have the option of uploading that into your system. But it's not compulsory. It's just purely for your own record keeping. You should notify your Vice President Education of your project completion. And what's very important is if you do a project outside of your club, a lot of Toastmasters who are really dynamic and want to get ahead go and do speeches at other clubs, but they don't tell their vice president of education, who doesn't know that that has happened. By the way, your base camp manager is your vice president of education or your secretary or your president, and they all have access to your records so they can update your file when necessary. And very important is when you complete a path level. Now, in each path, there are 5 levels that you have to work through. Whenever you complete one of those levels, which is typically 3 to 4 projects within that level, you must let a base camp manager know so that they can update Toastmasters International with this so that you can get credited with finishing that level. This is very, very important because otherwise that information is lost. If you go to your educational curriculum, which is one of the tiles that you'll see, let's see if we can find that. Where is this? Let's see if we can find it. There's your education transcript. Education transcript is there. If you go down to that, you will find your projects. Now, for instance, here, I am working on the path effective coaching, and you'll see there's a little tick here that says icebreaker. That means I've finished my icebreaker. And I've also finished the second project, which is evaluation and feedback, and also researching and presenting. So what I need to do now is to let my base camp manager know that I have finished my level 1, because these 3 projects comprise level 1. And if you look here at level 1, you can see that effectively I have completed 75% of effective coaching, which means there's still something outstanding in this level, which is probably to get my certificate and let my base camp manager know. You can see this little gauge here that shows you 15%. That indicates that I have finished 15% of the total path of effective coaching. So given that there's 2 paths in terms of my educational journey, I am 7.5% way up the mountain. 7.5% to fulfilling the requirements of the education program of Toastmasters. Now, something that Toastmasters considers very important is giving recognition. You know, often in Toastmasters, we don't give recognition to people who achieve things, who perhaps complete a path, or have given a great speech. So Pathways provides a way that you can give feedback to people. The first is whenever you achieve a level, when you reach a particular level, Toastmasters automatically awards you a digital badge. Can you see this is a 1 with a level 1, 2, 3, and 5 eventually. So you get awarded this badge, and I'll show you where the badge appears. It's not a physical badge that you pin onto yourself. It's a digital badge that stays within your base camp. The other type of badge that can be presented is where members can present awards to each other, again, digitally and online. So if you think, for instance, that somebody gave a really inspirational speech, you can send them a badge and with a message and say, hey, that was a really great speech you gave. It was inspirational. Or similarly, if it was very collaborative, got people working together, you can acknowledge somebody for that, again, digitally. So how do you do this? Well, what you can do is you go into that person's record. Can you see that I'm in Don Tooth's record here? And you can go to feedback. And then you can come in here. This is Don's record here. And then what you can do is go to feedback and click here to give him a badge. And you can even write a comment in there and save it. And Don will receive that. And I'm sure he would welcome that tremendously. Because really recognition is very, very important in Toastmasters. So here you can see giving feedback. These are the badges that you can click on and then write your particular note to him. And can you see here, you need to post that in order for it to go through. Now, the other thing, and again, this is entirely optional, it has no bearing on whether or not you are logged for progress or not, is your e-portfolio. Now, your e-portfolio is where you keep all your personal documents. So instead of having a hard copy of an evaluation, for instance, which you can file anyway, You can also scan it and upload it into your Basecamp, so everything's kept in one place digitally, and you don't have to worry about where you keep a hard copy file. So here, you go to your ePortfolio and click on that, and you will see that there's this screen comes up here where you have documents and badges. Now, if you remember earlier, I said that when members award badges to each other, they are awarded digitally. So this is where your badges are kept here automatically. Your documents are where you're going to scan hard copies or upload photographs or PDFs of your evaluation forms and your certificates and everything that you accomplish. So it's all in one particular place in your Basecamp. So what happens is, first of all, with your evaluations, by the way, you can go to tutorials and resources here, and you'll see that there are evaluation resources where all the evaluation forms are kept. So just so you know what an evaluation form for a project looks like, this is it here. So for the project, Deliver Social Speeches, your first speech, this looks something like this. It's got my name in it, it's got the evaluator, the speech length, and then you can put in your title, and then the evaluator will complete this during your speech and give you feedback and send it back to you. And this is the document that you would want to load here for yourself. So if you click on this, you'll be able to upload that document. So again, very important, if you're giving a speech or going to be an evaluator, make sure you've got a hard copy of the relevant evaluation form for your evaluator. If you're a speaker, you should really be doing it yourself, but as an evaluator, to be safe, make sure that you've got a copy. If you know you're going to be evaluating somebody, get that evaluation resource there, or evaluation form, which comes out of evaluation resource here. So get to know your way around the evaluation resource page. So here under my documents in my ePortfolio for level 1, I am going to be storing all my evaluation forms. So I'm going to click on this here, and you will see that my evaluation forms for my last 3 projects under level 1 are now being stored here. And I'll continue to scan these and update this folder whenever I have finished a speech. So that's more or less the basics of what you need to know to how to get around pathways, how to get going, and what's entailed. There's a lot more information behind all this. I encourage you to use the tutorials and resources tab here, which what you have to do is move your cursor over this, and this little tile will drop down here, and you will find numerous tutorials and resources which I encourage you to work through. A lot of them are videos, and it'll give you a lot of clarity on what you should be doing. So do that. Just remember, you have to hover over the resources and tutorials. And this is the type of menu that comes up. There's a lot of information here. Here are all your tutorials, your access to your evaluation resources, which you can see are in different languages. We obviously want English, and there's a lot of other information as well. So that's really what it's all about. I'm a Pathways guide, so I've had some extra training in Pathways. I'm very happy to share with you anything that you need to know, anything that you're not sure of. That's what I'm here for. All you have to do is give me a call, drop me an email or WhatsApp. I've got a number of other tutorials that I've run in Pathways in a lot more detail. If you want to know more about how it all works, I'm happy to send you the link for that. So I just wish you all the best in your journey, and I encourage you to get going on Pathways. Start your icebreaker as quickly as possible. Bye for now.